In my last couple of episodes, I discussed the George Floyd case and the significant impact of the Black Lives Matter, especially in the United States during this time. However, when watching the news, I've noticed something. And that's the way the media portrays visible minority communities, especially those in the Black and Latino community. These portrayals are usually perpetuating and reinforcing stereotypical views that society already have of these communities. In all types of media, from news, TV shows, movies, newspaper, and even on social media, we see that Black and Latino communities, along with other visible minorities, are usually portrayed as criminals or part of a deviant group or behavior or involved in any criminality. And these stereotypical portrayals aren't the only issue of the media. From what I've seen, the media is problematic in two ways. The first is that they control the narrative of the story. They choose what to tell us, what to show us, which images to use. And the second problem is that they use quote official statements from police officers or official agencies. You might be thinking, how is using official statements problematic? When it's a case involving a victim and a police officer and the media chooses to use the police officer's statements and whatever they say, it's problematic because that's only one side of the story. Given the recent events as we've seen in the David McGatty case and the George Floyd case, as well as Breonna Taylor, the victim isn't there to share their side of the story. So how's the media going to get their side of the story? And the police usually say the rinse and repeat lines of it's a tragedy, this is a once in a lifetime occurrence, these are just some bad apples, etc. But the thing is, it has happened again, and we can't ignore the history or the pattern of behavior that we've seen from cops in the United States. And don't get me wrong, we don't just see racism in the United States. This happens everywhere around the world, and especially in Canada with the whole Regis Korczynski situation as well. So I'm going to wheel us back in because I kind of went on a tangent there, but why are these two problems a problem? Given the reach that media and news outlets have, not having the full story leads to misinformation and fake news. This starts with the first problem, like I said before, journalists and reporters, as well as the media industry as a whole, control the narrative of the story. Let me ask you a question. When you see the Black Lives Matter movement on the news, what exactly do you see? Like, what images are shown to you? Take a second and just think about it. So we mainly see images of property damage or vandalism or people looting, and we see videos and images of police in riot gear. We also see videos of protesters who are peacefully protesting. The majority of these protests are peaceful. I just want that to be said for the record. But we see these protesters being pepper sprayed or handcuffed, arrested, where we see them being shot with rubber bullets, which again is inhumane and has caused several horrendous injuries to protesters, even innocent bystanders who are just out living their lives. In the David McGatty case, we saw live rounds being shot into the protesters. I don't want that to be taken out of context, so reports have said there were protesters shooting at police and the police returned fire, and unfortunately one of those rounds hit David McGatty as he was at his barbecue stand in a separate situation. So there was like the main protest, and then there was just a small gathering that the community does every week, and it just so happens that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time at his own barbecue stand. And the media frames these images with words and specific language to convey the message that violence and crime are being committed at these supposedly peaceful protests, but they are protests. And the majority of them are peaceful, like I said before. They tend to use the words such as riots and chaos, looters, robbers, thugs, criminals, lawlessness. When you hear these words, they probably painted a mental image of chaos and anarchy. But you gotta remember, the media shows you what they want to show you because blood and gore sells. They are a business. At the end of the day, you gotta remember, the media is a business and they need to rake in the views, rake in the ratings, get the profit. So you gotta remember that the majority of these protests are peaceful, and the media only exposes what sells, what will capture your attention. If you go online, on Twitter, YouTube, there are plenty of social media platforms that show you peaceful protests, and I'll probably insert one right here. Why are you in riot gear? I don't see no riot gear. Why are you in riot gear? I don't see no riot gear. Why are you in riot gear? Another consequence of overexposing these types of images and language to us is that these stories will desensitize us. Basically, that means we as a society, as people, if we see it too often and too much, it just becomes normal to us. It becomes normal everyday life. If we see the association between black people, violence, crime, riot, lawlessness, criminals, thugs, if we consistently hear that association, we're just going to think that the black community is dangerous because the media says so. We also gotta remember that the newsroom is plagued with biases. You can fact check me, but I'm pretty sure the majority of news reporters, anchors, journalists are white. This leads me into the second problem, which is the bias of the story being told, or the official story that the media gets from their official sources. Basically, what makes a source official is that they are part of the association or part of the service that is making the statement. And these official sources only tell one side of the story. Like I said before, we're not going to hear George Floyd's side of the story. We're not going to hear David McGatty's side of the story. We're not going to hear Regis Krasinski's side of the story. And we're not going to hear Breonna Taylor's side of the story. We're not going to hear their story because, and I don't mean to be glib or disrespectful in any way, but they're dead. And this all happened after involvement or interactions with police officers. So the only story we know now is the official story from police agencies or police services or whoever is their, I guess, media reporter, but whoever it is, they have to say what the police services are telling them to say to obviously not make the police look bad. And again, it's probably along the line of something like, this was a tragedy, we are heartbroken, it won't happen again, those being involved are being investigated and suspended / fired, some rinse and repeat bullshit that they always say. I know that was a lot for you to take in, and you're either agreeing with me or you're probably triggered or you're probably not even here. But if you are, let me just summarize these things for you. Obviously, don't believe everything you see or read in the news, and ask yourself, what isn't the news showing me? Stay educated and research. Know the facts before you start talking to other people. And please make sure you know your rights. Thank you again for watching all the way till the end. I know this was a bit of a longer video and a more serious topic, but the next couple of episodes of Let's Talk Fam will be focusing on Black Lives Matter and the criminal justice system, so that way I can help educate and spread the word. I hope these videos do eventually help you somehow or help someone and help prevent and reduce the amount of injustices we see in our criminal justice system. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, because I will be releasing consecutive videos that involve Black Lives Matter and the criminal justice system to help educate you. I'll also leave some helpful links in the description below for you guys. Thank you again for watching, and please subscribe to join the movement.